Hundreds of people across the country, once known only as John and Jane Does, have their real names back thanks to forensic investigative genetic genealogy, or FIG. The technology is credited with identifying people, but the tool is becoming more pivotal in solving crimes.
Investigative reporter Kristin Crowley shows us how the tech closes cases that would have otherwise gone unsolved.
You watch the news every day and you think, oh, those poor people. And before you know it, it's you.
When Brett Snow disappeared in 2015, his mother, Lori Ryson, knew something horrible happened.
He had gotten himself into drugs, and so he was kind of staying wherever. And so that's kind of led to, yes, a lifestyle that wasn't a good one.
In 2016, investigators found a large amount of his blood inside a Spokane home and arrested 4 people for his murder.
The understanding is they hurt Brett over the fact that he owed $80. And they hurt him to an extent that he would have had to have gone to the hospital. They chose not to do that, so they just decided, I guess, to finish it.
All 4 were convicted by 2021, but investigators never found Brett's body. They had no idea that for years, Brett's remains were already in evidence at the medical examiner's office.
There were skull fragments found at various times, at various places, and we didn't know that they were the same person.
Medical examiner Veena Singh says the unidentified remains sat for years because Washington state labs don't have the ability to do DNA testing on bone. One lab that does have that ability is Othram, a facility in Texas that specializes in forensic investigative genetic genealogy, or FIG. Singh's office sent the fragments, and Othram determined they all belonged to the same person, Brett Snow. For the first time in 7 years, his family had remains to lay to rest.
That came as, quite a surprise. I mean, I wasn't expecting that. I mean, at this point, it'd been, it was just this last year in April, so 7 years. I just really didn't feel like they were ever going to find anything.
FIG is known for identifying Jane and John Does, as well as unidentified human remains like Brett's. But the technology is going much further, something Spokane, Washington witnessed firsthand, because Brett's wasn't the only case investigators sent to Othram.
Their families were looking for them.
The Spokane Medical Examiner's Office got a $100,000 grant to access FIG through Othram Lab. It sent 23 cases of unidentified people, and by 2023, 9 of them were solved.
A lot of these cases that were solved in 2023, would they still be cold cases were it not for this genetic genealogy?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
But finding the identities of victims wasn't all Othram did.
Is this technology helping you catch killers?
It is, absolutely.
Sergeant Zach Stormont at the Spokane Police Department says thanks to the technology, it finally solved one of the oldest cases in Washington state, the 1959 rape and murder of 9-year-old Candy Rogers.
The identity of Candy Rogers was never in question.
No.
But the killer was.
Forever, for 62 and a half years.
All those years, Stormont said police had a suspect, but when they sent DNA from the case to Othram,
It was shocking that that person's not even part of the equation.
The person that ended up being the killer
Yeah.
was not a suspect at all.
Not in the case file.
John Ray Huff was never on their radar, but there's no doubt he raped and murdered the little girl. Traditional DNA couldn't locate him because he died in 1970, and no DNA of his existed in any database. It was through genetic genealogy that Othram was able to track down living relatives and narrow the sample down to Huff. The Spokane Sheriff's Department also solved a cold case murder with the technology, the 1978 rape and killing of 16-year-old Chrisann Baxter. As in Candy Rogers' case, the suspect died before DNA databases existed. But the technology is solving more than just cases of the past.
They went from wanting to use this technology only for their cold cases and their intractable, impossible cases, to wanting to use the technology for all their cases.
Kristin Middleman is the Chief Development Officer at Othram. She says in 2019, the lab solved 5 cases. In 2023, it announced it solved 144.
A lot of them are in the last few months of 2023. We're at a place where we're announcing 20, 30 cases a month right now, which is crazy.
How many of those have ties to a crime?
Almost all of our cases have ties to a crime.
Potentially bringing answers to dozens of cases. And answers, Lori Ryson says, is all any family can ever ask for.
Very hopeful for others, and if this type of thing happens to them, that there's that option of hopefully being able to solve and find their loved one.
The Spokane Medical Examiner says it still has 14 cases pending with Othram, and it expects to see answers to many of those this year. The ME's office also says it could not have utilized the technology without federal grant money. Each case costs up to $10,000 to test. Spokane officials hope their successes with FIG show how valuable this technology could be across the country and prompt more agencies to get financial help to use it.
There's work on Capitol Hill to expand access to this technology. The Carla Walker Act would allow law enforcement and medical examiners to apply for grant funding in an effort to make this cutting-edge DNA analysis more widely available. If passed, it would cost $80 million over 4 years. Our investigation continues in rural Missouri, where a family sought closure in a decades-long mystery.
What was your reaction when you got the DNA results back?
I was totally convinced that that was my uncle that they found.
Watch the full story on investigatetv.com. Just search DNA Detectives.